Have you ever wondered why your kidneys aren't improving, even though you've been trying so hard to eat healthier? Because if that's you, you're not alone. I'm Dr. Johnny, and today I need to give you a serious warning. Most kidney damage doesn't come from big, obvious mistakes. It comes from small, innocent breakfast habits that millions of Americans repeat every single morning without realizing they're silently pushing their kidneys closer to failure. But here's the part that gives me hope for you. Once you remove the wrong foods and replace them with the right ones, your kidneys can begin healing faster than you think. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 10 breakfast foods hurting your kidneys the most, including the #1 culprit that shocks even longtime kidney specialists. Stay with me because as we break this down, you'll start to recognize which morning habits are holding you back and which simple changes can help your kidneys recover, protect your GFR, and bring your health back under your control. And that brings us directly into the first hidden threat, one that almost everyone eats, but almost no one realizes how dangerous it can be. Processed breakfast cereals are one of the most deceptive kidney traps out there. They look harmless, colorful boxes, friendly branding, even claims like whole grain or heart healthy. But when my patient Michael walked into my office confused about why his creatinine kept rising, the very first thing I asked him was, "What do you eat for breakfast?" He said, "Just a bowl of cereal, the healthy kind." And right there I knew his kidneys were getting hit every single morning. The truth is, most cereals have more sugar per serving than a donut. When you pour that bowl, you're not giving your body energy, you're triggering what we call a morning glycemic shock. Your blood sugar spikes fast and your kidneys feel it first because they're forced to filter the overload before the rest of your body even fully wakes up. Studies from the Journal of Renal Nutrition show that high-sugar cereals increase insulin resistance and fluid imbalance, two early warning signs that your kidneys are under stress. And that crash you feel an hour later, that's your blood sugar dropping just as fast, pushing you to eat more and stressing your kidneys again. When Michael switched from sugary cereals to slow-digesting oats, something surprising happened. His morning blood pressure dropped within 2 weeks. His swelling went down, and for the first time in months, he felt like his body wasn't fighting him every morning. That's the power of one small change at the start of your day. But don't think we're done yet, because while cereals are bad, there's another breakfast habit that hits your kidneys even harder, and almost every American has fallen for it at least once. And just knowing this still isn't enough, because what comes next is even more dangerous and far more deceptive. And once you understand how processed cereals quietly push your kidneys into a morning overload, the next hidden danger becomes even clearer, because pastries and donuts don't just spike your blood sugar. They ambush your kidneys like a sugar-loaded grenade. Many of my patients tell me the same thing, "Doctor, I only grab one small pastry." It's quick, it's convenient, and I get it. When you're rushing out the door, that sweet, warm, soft bite feels comforting, almost harmless. But when my patient Linda told me she had switched to just a mini donut to avoid a heavy breakfast, I watched her lab results tell a completely different story. Pastries don't act like food. They act like a chemical shock wave. The combination of refined flour, added sugar, and industrial fats hits your bloodstream within minutes. Your pancreas gets overwhelmed, your insulin shoots up, and your kidneys are forced to filter the metabolic aftermath of a breakfast that contains almost zero real nutrition. According to a 2024 review from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, pastries can triple the post-meal glucose spike compared to whole grain options, and that spike directly increases kidney filtration, pressure, a key driver of long-term kidney decline. But what many people don't realize is that pastries create a double injury. The sugar damages your blood vessels while the trans fats spark inflammation in the very filters that keep your body alive. That's why Linda's swelling got worse and her blood pressure crept up, even though she was eating less. Her breakfast wasn't smaller, it was simply more damaging. When I asked her to replace pastries with a whole grain toast topped with avocado or almond butter, her energy stabilized, her cravings disappeared, and her kidney function finally stopped slipping. Sometimes healing isn't about eating more, it's about removing what's silently hurting you. And before you think pastries are the worst part of the morning, hold on, because the next breakfast habit has an impact strong enough to drive your blood pressure up within hours. But knowing this still isn't enough, because what the next food does to your kidneys is even more dangerous than sugar itself. And once you realize how pastries and donuts can wreck your kidneys, with sugar and inflammation, we have to talk about one of the most dangerous morning habits of all: bacon and sausages. Because unlike pastries, which hit fast and burn out, these processed meats create a slow, heavy strain that lingers for hours and pushes your kidneys into overdrive. I can't tell you how many times patients confidently tell me, "Doctor, I don't eat sweets. I'm healthy. I just have eggs and a little bacon." That little bacon is exactly what sent my patient Robert into trouble. His blood pressure spiked every morning, and he didn't understand why until we looked at the sodium content of his breakfast. Just 2 strips of bacon can contain more salt than an entire bowl of soup, and his kidneys were paying the price. The real danger isn't only the sodium, though. It's the nitrates and nitrites, chemical preservatives used to make processed meats look fresh and taste savory. A 2023 study from the National Kidney Foundation found that people who regularly eat processed meats have higher markers of inflammation and oxidative stress, 2 major drivers of kidney scarring. That's why Robert's GFR kept dropping, even though he thought he was eating protein for strength. But here's the part that really shocks people. Those saturated fats in bacon and sausages don't just affect your heart. They directly tighten the tiny blood vessels inside your kidneys, reducing blood flow and forcing them to filter harder. That's why so many kidney patients feel more bloated, more tired, and more inflamed after a classic American breakfast. When I switched Robert from processed meats to plain eggs or plant-based proteins like tofu scrambles, his morning blood pressure stabilized within 3 weeks. His creatinine stopped rising, and for the first time he realized that breakfast wasn't a routine, it was a turning point. And if bacon surprised you, stay with me, because the next breakfast mistake is one almost everyone thinks is healthy, but it carries a hidden sugar load that shocks your kidneys even more. But knowing this alone still isn't enough, because the next food hides its danger behind a label that looks harmless, but hits your kidneys even harder. And if processed meat shocked you, then this next one might surprise you even more, because on the surface it looks healthy, refreshing, even harmless. I'm talking about canned fruit juices, the kind so many people grab in the morning thinking they're making a smart choice. But when my patient Sarah came in frustrated that her glucose and creatinine wouldn't stabilize, the first thing I checked wasn't her dinner. It was the healthy juice she drank every sunrise. Canned juices are not fruit. They're liquid sugar with a pretty label. Most of them contain more added sugar than a soda, and because the fiber is completely stripped out, all that sweetness rushes into your bloodstream like a tidal wave. Your kidneys are forced to filter it instantly, and that sudden glucose overload becomes a direct hit on your filtration units. A 2024 study from the Harvard School of Public Health showed that people who drink canned or bottled fruit juices have a significantly higher risk of developing insulin resistance, a condition that silently damages the kidneys long before symptoms appear. And because these juices often contain preservatives like potassium sorbate and sodium benzoate, they trigger inflammation in the very tissues your kidneys need to heal. I remember telling Sarah, your juice isn't hydrating you, it's stressing you. And when she switched to whole fruits instead, apples, berries, even oranges, her energy stabilized, her glucose came down, and her kidneys finally stopped fighting that morning sugar surge. Sometimes the healthiest sounding foods are the ones doing the most damage. But don't go anywhere, because this next breakfast mistake hides in almost every kitchen, and nearly every American has eaten it without realizing how quickly it raises blood sugar and strains the kidneys. And knowing this still isn't enough, because what's coming next can hurt your kidneys even faster than juice, especially if you eat it every morning without thinking. And once you understand how canned fruit juices overload your kidneys with sugar, the next morning habit becomes even more important to catch, because it's so common, so normal, so ordinary, that most people never question it at all. I'm talking about white bread, the go-to choice for millions of Americans who believe a simple slice can't possibly do any harm. But when my patient Daniel told me he had cut back on everything unhealthy except for his toast, his lab results revealed the truth his breakfast wasn't telling him. White bread isn't just low in nutrition, it digests faster than almost any other carbohydrate. The moment it enters your system, it breaks down into glucose so quickly that your blood sugar spikes like you just drank a sugary drink. And remember what we said earlier, when glucose surges, the kidneys absorb the pressure first. They're the ones forced to stabilize your body after that sudden rush. That's why people who eat white bread in the morning often feel hungry again. Within an hour, it burns fast, crashes fast, and forces your kidneys to handle the aftermath again and again. A 2023 study from the Journal of Diabetes and Metabolic Disorders found that refined grains dramatically increase insulin spikes compared to whole grain alternatives. And here's the part people rarely realize. Repeated insulin spikes don't only increase your risk of diabetes, they accelerate kidney decline by damaging the delicate vessels inside your filtration system. That's why Daniel's creatinine remained stubbornly high even though he was eating small portions. It wasn't the portion, it was the wrong fuel. When he switched from white bread to whole grain toast with seeds and natural fiber, everything changed. His blood sugar stabilized, his appetite evened out, and his kidneys stopped experiencing that morning roller coaster of sugar surges and crashes. Sometimes the difference between healing and harming is just choosing a food that digests slowly instead of one that overwhelms your system before noon. But don't think we've reached the biggest trap yet, because the next breakfast mistake is one most people actually believe is healthy, thanks to clever marketing, colorful packaging, and phrases like low-fat or fruit-flavored that trick even the most health-conscious patients. And knowing this still isn't enough, because the next item hides more sugar than you'd ever expect, and it hits the kidneys in a completely different way. And once you realize how quickly white bread sends your blood sugar soaring, you'll understand why this next healthy breakfast is even more misleading. Flavored yogurts, the colorful cups that look refreshing, light, and full of fruit, are one of the biggest traps I see in kidney patients who believe they're making a smart choice. When my patient Melissa proudly told me she finally switched to yogurt instead of pastries, I opened her favorite brand and showed her the label. She froze. Her so-called healthy yogurt had more sugar than a candy bar. Flavored yogurts don't behave like real yogurt at all. They're loaded with added sugar syrups, artificial fruit gels, stabilizers, and preservatives that force your kidneys to process chemicals they were never designed to handle. You think you're eating probiotics, but you're actually giving your kidneys a glucose spike similar to drinking sweetened juice. And without fiber to slow anything down, the sugar rush hits fast and hits hard. A 2024 analysis from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that many fruit-flavored yogurts contain up to 22 to 28 grams of added sugar per cup, enough to spike blood sugar dramatically and heighten kidney filtration pressure. Worse, the artificial thickeners used to make these yogurts creamy can trigger inflammation in people with existing kidney issues, making recovery even harder. That's why Melissa's GFR had stalled for months, even though she cut out junk food. Her breakfast was marketed as healthy, but her kidneys knew better. The moment she switched to plain, unsweetened yogurt and added real fruit on top, blueberries, apples, or strawberries, her blood sugar stabilized almost immediately. Her cravings disappeared. Her morning energy stopped crashing, and for the first time, her kidneys weren't forced to handle a surge of sugar disguised as breakfast. But don't go anywhere yet, because what's coming next is even more dangerous than hidden sugar. And knowing this still isn't enough, because the next breakfast habit doesn't just spike your kidneys, it drowns them in sodium before your day even starts. And if flavored yogurts shocked you with how much hidden sugar they carry, the next breakfast mistake is even more dangerous, because it doesn't just spike your glucose. It overwhelms your kidneys with sodium before your day even begins. I'm talking about instant noodles, one of the most popular quick fixes for busy mornings, especially for people who feel too tired or rushed to cook. But when my patient Kevin told me he'd been eating instant noodles for breakfast because it's cheap and easy, I instantly understood why his blood pressure refused to come down. Instant noodles are sodium bombs. One serving can contain 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams of salt, which is nearly the entire recommended daily limit, and that's just in one meal. The moment that sodium hits your bloodstream, your kidneys are forced into emergency mode. They have to pull in extra water, push extra fluid through the filters, and struggle to maintain balance in a system that's suddenly overloaded. A 2023 study published by the National Kidney Foundation showed that high-sodium meals like instant noodles increase blood pressure for up to 6 hours after eating. 6 hours. That means your kidneys stay under pressure long after breakfast is over. And for someone already dealing with CKD or high blood pressure, that consistent stress accelerates kidney damage dramatically. And the problem doesn't stop there. The preservatives and cheap oils used to fry the noodles before packaging add even more inflammation to an already strained system. When Kevin finally replaced instant noodles with something simple like oatmeal or quinoa porridge, his blood pressure improved within a month. His swelling decreased, his energy returned, and most importantly, his kidneys weren't fighting a losing battle every single morning. But stay with me here because the next food doesn't just stress your kidneys, it damages them quietly through chemicals your body was never designed to break down. And knowing this still isn't enough, because what comes next hides behind a healthy alternative label, yet it harms your kidneys even faster than salty noodles ever could. And once you see how sodium-loaded instant noodles can overwhelm your kidneys, it becomes easier to understand why this next healthy swap is far more dangerous than people think. For years, margarine has been marketed as the smart alternative to Butter-Light, heart-friendly low cholesterol. But when my patient Eleanor proudly told me she had ditched butter for margarine to be healthier, I had to gently explain that she'd unknowingly traded one small risk for a much bigger one. Margarine is not a natural food. It's a manufactured blend of industrial oils, artificial flavors, and hydrogenated fats your body doesn't recognize, and your kidneys are not built to filter. These trans fats don't just raise LDL bad cholesterol, they cause inflammation inside the microscopic blood vessels that feed your kidneys. It's like pouring thick sludge into a system designed for clean flowing water. A 2024 review from the Journal of Renal and Vascular Health confirmed that trans fats increase oxidative stress in kidney tissues, accelerating the decline of filtration function, especially in people already dealing with high blood pressure or diabetes. And because margarine often contains emulsifiers and preservatives to mimic the softness of butter, your kidneys face even more chemical stress every time you spread it on your toast. When Eleanor switched back to small amounts of real butter, or better yet, olive oil and avocado, her labs stabilized. Her inflammatory markers dropped. Her morning blood pressure smoothed out, and she finally understood that healthy sounding doesn't always mean kidney safe. But don't think we've reached the worst offender yet, because the next breakfast food is so common, so beloved, and so normalized that most Americans eat it without realizing how aggressively it raises blood pressure and strains kidney function. And knowing this still isn't enough, because the next item might be the single biggest sodium trap hiding in your refrigerator right now. And once you understand how margarine silently fuels inflammation inside your kidneys, it becomes impossible to ignore the next morning habit, one that feels comforting, rich, even harmless, but quietly pushes your kidneys toward danger with every bite. I'm talking about cheese, of foods so deeply woven into the American breakfast that most people don't even think about the massive amount of sodium and saturated fat they're taking in before noon. When my patient Carla told me she had just a little cheese with her eggs each morning, she had no idea that a little could still overload her kidneys. Cheese is one of the highest sodium breakfast foods out there. Just a single slice can contain 150 to 300 milligrams of sodium, and most people use 2 or 3 without blinking. That extra load forces your kidneys to work harder from the moment your day starts, pulling in water, regulating electrolytes, and trying to balance a sudden unnecessary spike in sodium. For someone with CKD, that's like starting your morning workout sprinting uphill. You're already tired before the day even begins. But the hidden danger is the saturated fat. High saturated fat intake triggers inflammation and raises LDL cholesterol, tightening the tiny blood vessels that supply blood to your kidneys. A 2023 study from the American Journal of Kidney Diseases found a direct link between high cheese diets and decreased kidney filtration rates, especially in people over 50. That's why Carla's blood pressure kept creeping higher, even though she was eating clean. The cheese wasn't giving her strength, it was squeezing her kidneys from the inside. When I helped her replace cheese with plant-based options or low-sodium varieties, the difference was immediate. Her morning bloating eased, her blood pressure lowered, her kidney function stabilized for the first time in years. And she told me I had no idea something so small could make such a big difference. But hold on, because the final item on this list is the real kidney killer. The one that does more damage than sugar, salt, and fat combined, and it's probably sitting in your kitchen right now. And knowing this still isn't enough, because the next food isn't just harmful. It's the #1 breakfast mistake that sends thousands of people into kidney failure every single year. And once you see how cheese loads your kidneys with sodium and saturated fat, we finally reach the most dangerous breakfast habit of all, the one that does more damage than sugar, salt, and fat combined. I'm talking about processed meats, ham salami, hot dogs, deli slices, the so-called quick protein that millions of Americans throw onto their plates every morning without a second thought. But when my patient Henry walked into my clinic with swelling high blood pressure and a GFR dropping faster than expected, the culprit wasn't junk food or soda. It was the stack of breakfast ham he ate every single day. Processed meats are the ultimate kidney landmine. Just one serving can pack 600 or 1,000 milligrams of sodium nitrates, nitrites, phosphates, preservatives, and saturated fats, all of which hit your kidneys like a punch the moment your day begins. These chemicals aren't just unhealthy. They create inflammation inside the kidney's filtration units, stiffen the blood vessels, and accelerate scarring. That's why people who eat processed meats regularly have significantly higher rates of kidney decline, according to a 2024 study from the National Kidney Foundation. But here's the part that scares even me as a kidney specialist. Many processed meats use added phosphorus, a chemical form that absorbs rapidly into your bloodstream and forces your kidneys to work overtime to clear it. For someone with CKD, that's like pouring gasoline on a fire. Henry's phosphorus levels were through the roof, and he had no idea his simple ham breakfast was the cause. The moment he replaced processed meats with safer protein, plain eggs, beans, tofu scrambles, everything shifted. His blood pressure eased, his swelling went down, his kidney numbers finally stabilized, and he told me I can't believe I was hurting myself this badly without even realizing it. And that's exactly why this food sits at number one, not because it's the most obvious danger, but because it's the quietest. But listen closely, because what I'm about to say next is the part most people overlook. And knowing this still isn't enough, because avoiding these foods is only half the battle. The real secret to protecting your kidneys happens in the choices you make right after this video ends. You know, if you've come this far in the video, it tells me something important: you care about your health and you're willing to take real steps to protect your kidneys. And that alone already puts you ahead of so many people who feel stuck, frustrated, or scared. I want you to remember this: your kidneys don't need perfection. They just need the right choices made consistently, one morning at a time. So before you forget any of this, make sure you save this video. Come back to it whenever you need a reminder of which foods to avoid, especially on the days when life gets busy and old habits try to creep back in. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, because I share the latest, most practical kidney health advice every week. And I don't want you to miss a single update that could help protect your life, your energy, and your future. And here's the hopeful truth I want to leave you with. Your kidneys are stronger than you think. They can recover, they can stabilize, they can surprise you. With the right daily decisions and with guidance, support, and knowledge, you can take control of your health starting today. So keep learning, keep showing up, and keep believing in your ability to turn things around. I'm Dr. Johnny, and I'm here with you every step of the way. Take care of yourself, take care of your kidneys, and I'll see you in the next video.